Okay, today on Rick Steele Customs, we're going to be putting on the jet hot coated shorty headers on my 2012 Yukon Denali, and it's going to be fun. So first things first, you have to remove all the spark plug wires, get them out of the way. And in order to do this, what you want to do, especially if you're going to reuse these plug wires, which I am not, but in case you are, what you want to do is you want to give it a twist and then pull. Same thing on the plug end. And then what I did over the past few previous days is I used some PB Blaster on each of the header bolts, or exhaust manifold bolts, on both ends where it connects up to the catalytic converter down below and up on the cylinder head. Make sure you do this step because it's an important step, because what it'll do is it'll help prevent seizure of the bolt and snapping it off into the cylinder head. You don't want to have to mess with trying to drill and tap, and you're using easy out to remove the broken off stud that will be in your cylinder head if you don't at least try to spray them down over the past previous days before doing the actual job. So anyway, get all the plug wires off. Then break the bolts loose. And it can also help, even if it seems like it's coming out loose, you want to, of course, counterclockwise to loosen. And then once you break it loose, snug it back down. And then go back and forth, and then do that 2 or 3 times, and then go ahead and try and unscrew it. If at any point you feel a tension, try and screw it back in just a little bit, and then try and go back out. But anyway, that's going to be step 1. Remove the head bolts, and then get underneath and remove the catalytic converter connection up to the exhaust manifold. There's 3 bolts down there that you want to take off. Another thing I recommend you buy, an O2 sensor socket, because the exhaust manifold bolt on the passenger side, the O2 sensor is in the way. You will not be able to access the exhaust manifold bolt above the O2 sensor unless the O2 sensor is first removed. In case you're wondering how the tool works for the O2 sensor, you just slip the wire down this opening right here, and you can twist it out without ripping the wires or having to cut them. I'm going to go ahead and cut them if you're going to replace the O2 sensor, but if you don't have a check engine light on for the O2 sensor, why not just save it? Also, this tool you don't have to take off the fender liner. The tool fits between the fender liner and goes right into the O2 sensor port, just above the catalytic converter on the passenger side. You don't have to take off the tire either, so saves you some work. Also, thus far, my impact wrench has been useless. Those bolts are super tight, so I had to utilize my breaker bar. breaker bar, it was very hard. I'm surprised I was able to get the nuts off without breaking the studs. In case you're wondering what tool I'm using. And by the way, I pay for all my own tools. None of this is paid endorsement. This isn't, if I can get it to focus, you can read it. It's an Icon. I picked this up from Harbor Freight. It's a B325. I can't remember what I paid for it. I think it was like $60 or something like that. The Icon brand, I absolutely love. And again, I am not getting paid for this endorsement, but I am definitely going to endorse the Icon brand from Harbor Freight Tools. I also like Snap-on. I have plenty of Snap-on ratchets, but I think these are just as good. Maybe even a little better. Now, the only thing that I don't really care, I mean, I like it, but there are sometimes when it's impractical to have this swivel bend. But then there's a lot of times when it comes in very handy, so I would rather have the swivel bend than not have it. These are very fine tooth. This particular one is, what is that? It's a 90 tooth. So it's a really good quality. If you haven't seen these things yet, go to Harbor Freight and check them out. These are not cheap though. You're looking at about about $55, $60. Even if you have a coupon, you might be able to save something on them. But if you're going to be doing this type of thing, mechanical work, or if you're in the trade, I highly recommend these. These things are awesome. And I actually have several of them, all different sizes. In fact, I got every variation that they have. And you can see there, that's another 90 tooth. If it'll focus camera.
The only thing that I didn't like about them is these little screws have the tendency to work themselves out. Same thing with the one at the wrist joint. So if that happens to you, just take them out fully, put some red Loctite, and stick them back in there, and you should be good to go.
They even have a little baby one. But yeah. But yeah, I've been buying Snap-on for the longest time. I mean, here's an antique. But anyway, get back to it. One thing that Harbor Freight sells that I definitely will not make a positive recommendation for is this Pittsburgh creeper. The creeper is a great design in itself because it's really low to the ground and it's really wide and it has these little pockets here. You can put nuts, bolts, tools. But these casters are absolute crap. If you do buy this or you do have it, I recommend you do what I'm about to do. I'm about to take one of these casters off, go back to Harbor Freight and see if they have a decent set of 6 casters that I can incorporate onto this one. That might be kind of harder said than done. These casters here give me absolutely no issue whatsoever. I love these casters. This is a good creeper also because it has the adjustable headrest, so you can raise it or lay it flat. Or different positions in between there. And the reason I hate these casters is because you know how it is if you roll your creeper up against a nut and it gets wedged under the tire. This does that without even having anything under the tires, rolling on nice flat concrete.
I already did the upgrade to that particular creeper, and I will leave a link up here so you can check out how I fixed it. Now the creeper works perfect.
Okay, on the driver's side, and this is the only one out of the 6 nuts that is giving me an issue. You can't get the socket in because the swivel is up against the catalytic converter. And a short weld will not work either because the stud that the nut is on is way too long. So I had to custom make my own socket. I just took this 15 mil down to my chop saw and I shortened it by about a 1/4 inch. I'm hoping it's enough. If not, the cool thing is with these heated sockets, they have the pattern quite a bit into the socket. In fact, that far. So I'll let you know in a second if this is gonna work to get that last nut off. Okay, that's one side down. One more to go. As far as removal, still got to install this one, of course. But I did have a lot of issue with that one nut. It was not an easy job. And GM is usually smarter than this, but I couldn't get this nut right here. If they had tilted this bracket before welding it on, even if I had to take off the O2 sensor, it would have been a lot easier than what I just went through. Yeah, so they should have tilted that bracket before welding it on, just in consideration if somebody ever has to replace the head or the head gaskets or the exhaust manifold gaskets. But another thing, 3 of the mounting bolts were finger loose. Which one's prettier? Which one do you think will flow better? So what happened was when I sprayed the bolts down the night before, actually the two, 3 nights before, some of the fluid actually entered into the exhaust port on all the heads. In fact, that's pretty much why it's wet right there. But that's because this one was finger loose, this one was finger loose, that one was finger loose. So basically, I believe it was only this one and this one that were tight. Now, initially when you started it up, you would hear a tapping, which would pretty rapidly disappear. And that was because of the expansion from the heat would cause it to snug up. I had a similar deal going on with my O2 Corvette, but it was with the intake manifold. During the wintertime, it would run super rough until the engine warmed up. then it would be as good as new. I mean, it wouldn't make any noise when it idled nice and smooth. But the intake manifold on the C5 Corvettes has O-rings, and these O-rings flatten out after a while, and they'll allow unmetered air to enter into the intake manifold plenum, and it will cause a rough idle until the metal expands and seals up against those O-rings. So if you're having issues with a C5 Corvette or any LS platform engine in the wintertime only until it warms up, well, then you know what it is now. Replace the O-ring gaskets on your intake. Another thing I forgot to mention when discussing how much this whole thing is costing me, I forgot about the new gaskets. So anyway, I had to buy the gaskets. I bought some bolts for it, and I bought some studs. Wasn't sure which one I wanted to run. You can use either one. It's just a preference. But anyway, if you're experiencing a tapping noise when you first start up your LS platform engine, after the thing cools down, go ahead and snug up the bolts and see if that causes your issue to go away. You may not have to spend $900 on doing this particular job. It just might be a free job. Just go ahead and tighten up the bolts. Now, as I said, these are ceramic coated inside and out, so they're going to actually save my spark plug boots from damage. But I also bought these. I may or may not use them. But so actually, with all this, I have about $900 in this header job. These were right here were $55 alone. These are not expensive. These were only like $12, and then like another 18, maybe $20 for those. So yeah, I'm right at $900. So yeah, definitely make sure you tighten these. And I could have done that myself, but I thought these would be a lot cooler. And they'll probably pay for themselves in the long run if they give me more horsepower and better fuel economy, which they just might. But if I had to pay somebody to put these on, forget it. There's no way I would have done it. I would have just taken the bolts out and bought a set of these, stuck these in there, because I do not like the original gaskets. These are these little 3-ply flat steel gaskets. Don't like them. Okay, I ran into an issue. I got the driver's side completely installed, no problem. But on this side, passenger side, the flange is actually different from the driver's side. It is nearly 3/4 of an inch thick, but only where the bolts go through. And I'm guessing it's got to do with the beveled pipe. So, unfortunately, I did not notice this until I went to hook up the Y pipe. And of course, as you've seen earlier, I welded in my studs. So, here's what I had to do. I had to take my my grinder, and I had to cut through the weld. No big deal. It came right out. And the reason I had to do this, of course, is because these bolts are too short. So anyway, what I had to do now is I bought 2.5-inch bolts that are 7/16 by 14, the same exact size, but they were not all thread. But this actually worked out to my benefit. These actually pressed in, and they're actually pretty snug. I mean, there is zero wobble, and I had to hammer them in with a hammer. So first thing what I did is I put the nuts on so as not to damage the thread by impacting them with the hammer. And I just tapped them into position. So now these will be plenty long in order for me to get this thing installed. I just have to now re-weld the top of these. So on this one, and I'm guessing it's because of the angle of the pipe, the nut was able to go on fully. So that's kind of weird, even though it's also the like 3/4 of an inch, but there's enough sticking out. So anyway, I just have to weld this, and I'll be ready to fire this thing up. Thought I was running out of shielding gas, but it's this wind blowing my gas away. Okay, if you want your headers to rub the heat shield for your refrigerant lines, do not do what I just did. I just dented it right there. You can see where I'm pointing at with my light. I took my jack handle and a rubber mallet, put it up against it, and just hammered away at it to get it up and away from the headers, because they are going to rub the heat shield. The only other alternative would be to remove the heat shield. But then your refrigerant lines are going to be heated up, and your air conditioning is not going to work as efficiently as it would with a heat shield protecting it from the exhaust heat. Highly recommend you do this. Okay, as you can see, the nuts went on without any issues. I only wish I thought about this from the get-go. There was nothing to it, man. This took me probably about 5 minutes to bolt those three on. Of course, since they're welded, I don't have to have somebody help me from the top. If I did, this probably would have taken me, who knows, man, maybe an hour. But make sure you check both your flanges to see if you have an extended one like this. And you can see right below the nut. And I can't get my freaking phone up in there. But take my word for it, that's almost 3/4 of an inch thick. Where on this side, that wasn't an issue. As you can see how much bolt I have sticking out of those nuts. Also, those are lock nuts that I'm using, aircraft quality, without the plastic. Those will never come off with vibration and heat contraction. So you definitely want to go that route. Don't use the cheap Chinese crap that comes with these headers. And you can see how much room I got between the heat shield and the header now, where the first time when I tried bolting these on, it was actually contacting it, which would have given it probably a nasty, tinny vibration sound. Which nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear cool exhaust and cool headers. Nothing cool about heat shield hitting the header. And from up top, you can see I've got at least an inch of clearance between the header and the heat shield. And I highly recommend using these studs rather than a bolt to attach these headers. It made the job so much easier. And then, of course, when you install the gasket, again, this side out, it just slips over. Because of these notches on the ends, it just slips over the stud. And then you just shove it down into place. Make sure it's firmly up against the stud. And it's that simple. That's simple. And then you take your other studs, Allen end out, insert them in. All right, two-hand job here. Okay, once you get all your little studs in, then just put your nuts on. And snug them down. Another good thing about these studs, as opposed to the bolts, I don't think you ever have to worry about snapping one off inside your cylinder head unless you over torque the nut. But later on, if you ever want to replace these or go back to stock, you can do that without having to worry about snapping the nut. I mean the stud. And then to get them off, if they're tight, you just lubricate them with PB Blaster or equivalent, and just loosen them, take them off. And then to get the stud out, you use your Allen key. The Allen key just goes right into the stud. And that's how you snug them down right there. Okay, another thing, when you tighten these, you don't want to do them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You want to start off in the center and then work your way to the back, furthest bolt, then to the front, furthest bolt, then to this bolt, then to this bolt, and then to this bolt. That way you get an even compression of your copper gasket. And the center one, the initial one that I started with, I don't torque it down all the way. I just torque it till it's snug. That way I can just finger tighten these without having to worry about the ratchet not being able to twist. And on the catalytic converter side, on that flange gasket, leave the nuts loose so you can have some wiggle room right here to get your studs started. Okay, there's no issues at all with this. And you can see I can get my whole hand in here. No problem at all. And I got my gasket below in place. You can see it right there. So it's just a matter of getting under and lifting up the tri-pipe and then attaching it with the nuts. I will still be doing the valve cover gaskets before firing it up. But if this was the hard side, which I think it was because of the steering, the other side should be a breeze. All I have is a few hoses to maneuver around, some heater hoses. But anyway, 1 minute. Got my headers all installed. I got my valve cover gaskets replaced. I installed new spark plugs. I installed new plug wires. And I installed new fiberglass insulations to protect from the headers. Not that you really need them for these ceramic coated headers, but it's just a little added layer of protection I decided to install. All in all, the job was very simple. These are probably some of the easiest headers I've ever installed. Well, certainly the easiest I've ever installed on a modern vehicle. But definitely, change your gaskets, valve cover gaskets if they need to be changed. It's the time to do it. Change your plugs too while it's definitely the time to do it as well. But I really didn't notice any sound changes. To me, it sounds the same as it did with the cast iron. So anyway, I'm going to fire it up right now, and you can let you listen to it. As you can see, it doesn't sound radical or anything like that, or a whole lot different from the factory. But I'm hoping to haven't even taken it out on the road yet. Hoping to get a little bit of a kick in the seat difference in the way it accelerates and performs. Hopefully it should be a little quicker. I mean, this is a 6.2 liter, so it was already pretty good to begin with. But I have no check engine light on, and didn't affect the emissions anyway, shape or form. So you can still see I got 3 catalytic converters on this thing. They all came from the factory. I didn't mess with the Y pipe or have to modify it in any way, shape, or form. So that's going to be about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, got something out of it, and decide to go ahead and work on your own if it's something you want to do. The main reason again that I did this is because I had a factory exhaust manifold gasket leak. That leak is now gone, so I solved that issue. But with gaskets, with plugs, with wires, this was about $1,000. I'm not sure what the dealer would charge you to change your exhaust manifold gaskets, but it'd probably be pretty close to that. So anyway, again, I appreciate it. If you would like to, go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell icon, and appreciate a thumbs up. Anyway, Rick Steele Customs, that's it for today. Have a good one. Out.